I will call the final meeting of the 2013-2014 Common Council meeting to order. First order of business beyond the call to order is a roll call. All members have reported as present. Thank you for being here this evening, and those watching at home and those here in person. Next item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a silent prayer of Lumen Invocation. I invite you to please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4 on our agenda this evening is the reading of the minutes of the previous meeting.
Dispense with the reading, place them on file.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? That passes. Next item on the agenda is the explanation of the visitor speaking procedure. Given the number of people in the audience this evening, I'm expecting some individuals wanting to address the body. If you may wish to do so, you can only speak to the body on an item that is appearing on our agenda this evening, in which you have to be recognized either by myself, the chair, or by another council member, in which you will be invited to the podium. Please indicate your name, address, and make sure you push the button on the base of the microphone to make sure that they can pick you up on TV, in which you'll have 5 minutes to address the body. Next item on the agenda is item number 6, the introduction of an oath of office for new police officers Jacob Guzzi and Jermaine Olivares. Invite those two to please come forward. Congratulations. Next item of business is item number 7, Mayor Vruwink's report. Council members, members of the public, and those here this evening. Over the past couple of months, Renaissance Learning has made national and international headlines on more than one occasion. First, the $40 million investment by Google in Renaissance Learning, and second, the sale to Hellman and Friedman. Technology, as I mentioned in previous meetings, will continue to be a critical facet of our local economy, and Google's investment in a local company is demonstration of that. We must continue to embrace it and explore ways for other tech firms to start with an idea and grow right here in our own community. Infrastructure assets like Solaris' multi-million-dollar fiber investment make us a community that is as wired as Silicon Valley and New York City. Now it's up to us to make it known to entrepreneurs and employers not here, and for us to rival those areas as a place where people want to live, work, and raise a family. Shortly after the announcement of Google Capital's investment, we learned that private investment firm Hellman and Friedman planned to purchase Renaissance Learning for $1.1 billion. Keeping in close contact with Renaissance CEO Jack Lynch and his team has been a high priority of myself and my office, and I look forward to the ongoing conversations we'll have. My focus to make Wisconsin Rapids their place of choice to continue to do business, whether it is understanding our role in attracting workers, training our local workforce to meet their needs, or being an attractive place to live, work, and raise a family. Renaissance Learning plays a significant role in educational technology and analytics, and is demonstrated in the recent announcements. We're proud to have Renaissance Learning headquartered right in our own area, and we welcome the new ownership, Hellman and Friedman, and look forward to their continued investment in our own community. I'm hopeful that this is the beginning of only further growth for their company locally. Last month, since our last council meeting, I enjoyed employers, educators, and other workforce partners from the central Wisconsin region to learn, plan, and discuss future IT workforce initiatives. Conversations took place around building a better IT pathways in education, examining IT initiatives already taking place, and pursuing grant opportunities to further fund IT workforce initiatives for employers. The event was a productive start to engaging in a strategy that not only meets our local needs here in Wisconsin Rapids, but one that is connected in a region, in the central Wisconsin region. Someone who recognizes the role and importance of embracing technology, moving forward as a means to grow our local economy, I was excited to be part of the conversation alongside Mid-State Technical College and employers from our area and the greater Wisconsin Rapids area. The third area I'd like to mention tonight is on the subject related to embracing technology to grow our local economy, and that was the Get Your Business Online initiative that the city formally kicked off last month at a breakfast before business at the Hotel Mead. At the breakfast, representatives from over 50 area businesses joined in recognizing that in 2014, it is vital that businesses, both large and small, have an online presence. This event was the first in what will be a year-long emphasis on the role that technology can play in helping our businesses grow. As mayor, I take my responsibility very seriously about raising awareness and connecting our local businesses with the tools and resources to get online to improve their online presence. And that is why I'm proud to bring this partnership with Google and to launch the initiative right here in Wisconsin Rapids. We're proud that Solaris was able to help us underwrite the cost for the initiative, and partners in the Chamber of Commerce and others that supported the initiative as well. And last week, we began our second round of rapid improvement training. This time we have 19 trainees from 9 different city departments taking part in the training sessions. As with the first round of trainees, this training group will be working on a project during their training. That project will examine the long grass weeds enforcement process by ordinance control. The goal is to potentially reduce or eliminate some of the many areas for delay in the system, bringing the process from one that can take as long as 2 weeks to accomplish to bring into compliance to closer to 5 days, that given for compliance in our ordinance. We'll begin by having report out sessions at the end of April. During the session, all training groups will be reporting on their projects at the session, and extend any invitation to any alderperson interested in joining the session to attend, as this is when all projects will be reporting out on their progress. Had a proclamation I issued this month, April 6th through the 13th, for National Volunteer Week, in which United Way celebrated and kicked off their National Volunteer Week at a breakfast last week, recognizing those individuals and groups in our community who commit their time and energy to various service opportunities in our area. National Volunteer Week is about inspiring, recognizing, and encouraging people to commit volunteer opportunities in our community. And tomorrow, I have another Coffee with the Mayor session where I invite residents, businesses, and anyone else who wants to join me from 8 to 9 a.m. at Gracie's Restaurant in the Shopko Plaza from 8 to 9 a.m. Join me for coffee or breakfast for all or part of the time. And as always, I welcome the opportunity to meet, discuss ideas and issues, and invite community members and others to subscribe to my community update, which I post on about a weekly basis to keep residents and others involved and informed as to what's happening from the mayor's office. With that, I'd entertain any questions on the report or move to the next item on the agenda. Seeing none. Item 8, the report of the Planning Commission meeting held April 7th, and I just flipped my page mistakenly back on that. The Planning Commission met at 5 p.m. on April 7th in the first floor conference room at City Hall. The first item of the agenda was an approval of the report from the December 2nd Planning Commission meeting. There was a motion and a second to approve the report. Motion carried. Item 2 was maps and plats received. Now, item A was a Rosewood Estates 5th additional final plat request. There was a motion and a second to approve that request, and the motion carried. Item B was Trevatuski CSM request. in which there was a motion and a second to approve the CSM request, and that motion carried. There was a second Trubatuski request, and that motion was seconded. Motion was made and seconded to approve, and that motion carried. Item 3 was a public hearing on Plan 140074, Progressive Ventures LLC, in which the applicant is requesting a conditional use to allow veterinary clinic and self-storage units within the B2 General Commercial District. The subject property is 1.47 acres, is located at 331 12th Avenue South. Public hearing was held. There was a number of members speaking, number of individuals speaking in favor of the request, and a number of individuals speaking speaking against the request. Item 4 was an action on the plan, on the Plan 140074, Progressive Ventures LLC. There was a motion and a second to approve a conditional use to allow a veterinary clinic and self-storage units within the B2 General Commercial District located at 331 12th Avenue South, contingent upon the meeting staff conditions listed in the minutes. Item number 5 was a motion to adjourn and a second, and that motion carried. Council members, what are your wishes regarding the report of the Planning Commission meeting held April 7th? We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. All those, please cast your ballots. I'm sorry, we'll move into the computer since we got that back and running this time.
Motion carried, 8 ayes and 0 nays.
Item number 9 on the agenda is action items from commissions. Item A was a wastewater treatment commission report of February 5th. Item 3 regarding the termination of the wastewater services agreement with the Waterworks and Lighting Commission, which provided for discounted volume rates effective April 1st, 2014, which is attachment number 1 in your packet. Council members, what are your wishes regarding that? We have a motion. Is there a second? A motion and a second. Thank you. Any discussion? Item blue.
Thank
The
you.
blue button. Alderperson Stack?
Yes,
You have a discussion
you.
item?
just one item.
Sure.
On that termination agreement, it speaks to a 40% reduction on the treatment of waste disposal. That is something occurring between the city and the water and treatment, or who are the parties involved in that one? I'd like to know.
I can defer to the wastewater superintendent. The agreement isn't attached, number 1, but Jim, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, that's between the wastewater treatment commission and the water and light commission.
Water and Light Commission. Okay. Now, that agreement for that 40% discount, it said in the notes that it began in 1996 or so, and has been a part of an agreement between those two entities for this period of time. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. Would such a reduction have a change in this agreement have any bearing on any future rate increases?
It may, but it's kind of early to tell.
All right. And what was that cost that was saved? What will be the new cost? Do you know that?
To Waterworks and Lighting Commission?
Between the two parties involved? Yeah.
I don't know, Tim, do you have the,
Defer to the finance
I
director.
don't
You're
have
the-
those numbers, Jim.
If you take just the volume from 2013, the full rate, if this agreement were to go into effect, the 2013 cost to the Water and Light Commission would be $63,000 approximately. But with the discount, it'd be $38,000, so about a $25,000 difference.
Okay. I just wanted to know, so I thank you. Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Motion carried, 8 ayes and 0 nays.
Item number 10 is reports from the Finance and Property Committee meetings held April 1st. Alderperson Young.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, everyone who's here this evening and everyone watching at home. I have two reports this evening. So the first report, the Finance and Property Committee, excuse me, I probably should read it off of here, met at 5:15 PM on Tuesday, March 18th in the first floor conference room here at City Hall. All members were present except Alderman Whirl, who was excused. A list of others in attendance is on file in the clerk's office. Item 2, there were no special beer license applications. Item 3, a special events application filed by the Kiwanis Club for a public Easter egg hunt held on April 19th from 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. at the Centralia Center parking lot. Included in the request that the $25 event fee be waived. It was moved and seconded to approve the request with preferred locations of Mead or Witter Fields and not to waive the $25 fee. That motion carried. So to clarify, we did approve it. We just made a recommendation that it might be better off in one of the parks pending the snow going away. Item 4, a request from the Wisconsin Rapids Rafters for permission to make improvements to Witter Field to better accommodate persons with disabilities. The improvements would be funded with a grant from the Northwoods League Foundation. If anyone's interested, Shane, I believe you have the documents, correct? The pictures and everything. I mean, it really is fantastic what they're planning on doing for individuals with disabilities at the field. It was moved and seconded to approve that request, and that motion carried. Excuse me. Item 5, review and consider formal adoption of a Title VI plan. It was moved and seconded to approve that plan, and the motion carried. Item 6, renewal applications for Class B beer licenses filed by A, Wisconsin Rapids Men's Softball Association for the premises located at Mead Field, 17th Avenue South. Was moved and seconded and approved to approve that. B, Wisconsin Rapids Women's Softball Association for premises located at Mead Field, 17th Avenue South. It was moved and seconded to approve that license, and that motion carried. Item 7, beverage operator license applications. A, it was moved and seconded to approve licenses for the individuals listed. That motion carried. B and C, there were no renewal applications, and there were no licenses recommended denied. Item 8 is audit of the bills. The committee audited the bills from 3/3/2014 to 3/31/2014. It was moved and seconded to approve. That motion carried. Item 9, it was moved and seconded to adjourn. The meeting adjourned at 5:20 p.m. Second report, the Finance and Property Committee met this evening in the first floor conference room. All members were present. A list of others in attendance is on file in the clerk's office. Item 2, a request from Don and Sherry Wallach of the Gold Wing Road Riders Association, Region E, for a special events application for a Gold Wing rally on August 9th from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at Ben Hansen Park to include vending. It was moved and seconded to approve that request contingent on receiving a certificate of liability insurance. That motion carried. Item 3, a request from Lorna Holowinski of Assumption Catholic Schools for approval of a special events application for May 16th from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. for a music concert, May 17th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for a run walk, and May 18th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. for a royal event to include A, special beer license application. The premises cover the tent, the grounds between the tent and school, and the school's gymnasium. B, fun run walk route, and my understanding is they're working with the police chief to get that arranged. C, street closure of Chestnut Street between Cliff and Hill, and E, vending. It was moved and seconded to approve that application with those items listed. That motion carried. Item 4, a request from Adam Teagan, Planning and Economic Development Director, for approval of a marketing strategy for city-owned parcels with specific approval of the disposition via quitclaim deed of certain city remnant properties at no cost. It was moved and seconded to approve that marketing strategy. That motion carried, and you can see that is attachment number 1. Item 5, a request from Street Superintendent Jim Borski to purchase street marking paint and glass beads. It was moved and seconded to approve the lower bidders Sherwin-Williams for $16,105, and glass beads from Tapco for $2,479.20. That motion carried. That is attachment 2. Item 6, beverage operator licenses. It was moved and seconded to approve the 2 new licenses for the individuals listed, and that motion carried. Item 7, there was a motion to adjourn. That motion carried, and the meeting adjourned at 5:36 p.m. With that, I would make a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderperson Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. One correction of the minutes, Shane, on item 8, first report. Seconded by Jean.
Oh, yep, because Chad wasn't there.
Correct.
Thank you. You were there in spirit, Chad, just not able to second motions.
Interesting. Any other discussion on the reports? Seeing none, we'll let Shane, please cast your votes.
Motion carried. 8 ayes and 0 nays.
Item B is the Public Works Committee meeting held April 8th concerning Alderperson Rayom.
Thank you, Your Honor. Public Works Committee met at 5:30 PM on Tuesday, April 8th, 2014, in the first floor conference room in City Hall. All members were present. Also attending were Mayor Verwink, Alderperson Bob Nash, Sue Shell, Dave Laspin, and Joe Eichstead. A list of others present is on file in the clerk's office. Item number 1 was to call the meeting to order. Item number 2, a request from the Village of Buren to close 48th Street from Log Home Lane to Commerce Drive for a period of up to 3 weeks, beginning about April 21st, 2014, to facilitate the installation of a 16-inch steel casing under the CN Railroad tracks for the 8-inch sanitary sewer force main from the Buren Business Park to the Wisconsin Rapids 21-inch sanitary sewer at 44th Street. John Evanson, the president of the Village of Buren, and Larry Koopman of Lampert Lee and Associates Engineers were present for this item. There was a motion and a second to approve the request, and the motion carried. Item number 3 was a request from the Village of Buren for a temporary truck detour route for 48th Street traffic. The temporary truck route would include 32nd Street from the railroad tracks south to Washington Street, then east on Washington Street to 48th Street, then north on 48th Street to Commerce Drive. John and Larry were present again for this item. There was a motion and a second to approve the proposed temporary truck detour route, contingent that the town of Grand Rapids also approves the temporary truck detour route. That motion carried. Item number 4, review and recommend approval of bids for the 2014 curb and gutter and sidewalk contract. The bids opened shortly after 4 p.m. on Tuesday, April 1st, 2014. The low qualified bid in the amount of $194,577.50 was received from Robluski of Stevens Point, Wisconsin. There was a motion and a second to recommend approval of the low qualified bid in the amount of $194,577.50 that was received from Robluski's of Stevens Point. And that motion carried. That's attachment 1. Item number 5, review and recommend approval of bids for the 2014 concrete street patching contract. Bids opened shortly after 4 p.m. on Tuesday, April 1st, 2014. The low qualified bid in the amount of $229,750 was received from Summers Construction of Shiocton. There is a motion and a second to recommend approval of the low qualified bid in the amount of $229,750 that was received from Summers Construction of Shiocton. The motion carried. That's attachment 2. Item number 6, review and recommend approval of the bids for the 2014 asphalt paving contract. Bids opened shortly after 4 p.m. on Tuesday, April 1st, 2014. The low qualified bid in the amount of $126,150.85 was received from American Asphalt of Wisconsin of Mosinee. There was a motion and a second to recommend approval of the low qualified bid in the amount of $126,150.85 that was received from American Asphalt of Mosinee. Motion carried. That's attachment number 3. There was a request from Ed Allison, the Building and Grounds Director of the Wisconsin Rapids School District, to remove a portion of the 2-hour parking restriction on the south side of Peach Street between Lincoln Street and 6th Street South, adjacent to the School District Administration Building. Ed was present for this item. There was motion and second to approve the request. That motion carried. The attachment number 4 with the ordinance change. Item number 8 was a request from Alderperson Young to increase the speed limit on 2nd Avenue. There was motion and second to deny the request, and that motion carried. Item 9 was right-of-way plat for the City of Wisconsin Rapids, safe routes to school, sidewalk and crossing improvements, project number 6999-07-17. There was motion and second to approve the right-of-way plat for the City of Wisconsin Rapids, safe routes to school, sidewalk and crossing improvements. The motion carried. Item number 10, relocation order for the City of Wisconsin Rapids, safe routes to school, sidewalk and crossing improvements. There was motion and second to approve relocation order for the City of Wisconsin Rapids, safe routes to school, sidewalk and crossing improvements. That motion carried. Item 11, review the 2013 stormwater report to the Wisconsin DNR for the MS4 permit. The committee reviewed the report. Item 12 was review the proposed 2014 Public Works project schedule. Committee reviewed this schedule. Item 13, review the referral list. The committee reviewed it. Item 14 was adjourned. There was a motion and a second to adjourn. The motion carried. The meeting adjourned at 7:17 p.m. And, Your Honor, I move for adoption of the report.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. Alderperson Young?
Excuse me, I'd like to hold out item 8.
Request to hold out item 8. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please cast your votes.
Motion carried. 8 ayes and 0 nays.
Thank you. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I
can
was just
go.
waiting for the
Right.
chain to clear, but Alderperson Young?
Thank you. So we all received either electronically and/or in our mailboxes correspondence from our city attorney. I'd like to just read the last paragraph, and it's only a couple sentences, so bear with me, Adam. Again, I don't believe you have any discretion here. The council overstepped its bounds by reducing the speed limit. The only way to make a limit enforceable again is to change it back to the speed that is supported by the multiple engineering and traffic investigations. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to increase the speed limit on 2nd Avenue between West Riverview Expressway and Gaynor Avenue to 35 miles per hour.
We have a motion and a second. Open it up for discussion. Any discussion? Alderperson Kellogg? Make sure your mic's on, please. Thank you.
I really have a concern about increasing that speed limit. We received this memo from Sue Schill on April 14th, which is almost an identical memo that the Common Council received on August 11th, 2009. And that, in that memo, I think if you read the statement or the statute 349.11, and I like to read it slowly so that people in the audience and people at home can capture the emphasis of this particular statute. It says, wherever the local authorities determine upon the basis of an engineering or traffic investigation, not study, investigation, that any statutory speed limit is greater or less than reasonable or safe under the conditions found to exist upon any part of the highway, That's the issue that we have and the residents have, and Lee Albrecht, I think, and bringing it to the Common Council, and the Common Council reducing the speed was responsible in doing that. The rest of it says, or that the actual speed of the vehicles upon any part of the highway is greater or less than reasonable or prudent. The local authorities may determine and declare a reasonable and safe speed limit on the highway or part thereof in question. And my concern, and it was shared at the Public Works, and was shared by the residents in that community, and there may be some here that can give testimony to the conditions in that area. It's not the speed limit. A speed limit that they are studied, they talk about the number of cars going a particular speed, and if 85% of those cars think it should be going faster and so forth, they should raise the speed. And Dan Marzewski gave a letter to me, and I gave a copy to other Common Council members, that if you go with that same philosophy, you would increase 8th Street to 40 miles an hour. You would increase the expressway to 50 miles an hour. So that idea of looking at that speed study doesn't make sense when you look at the conditions in that area. So what are the conditions we're talking about? Well, if you go from the expressway to Woodbine, there's an island at Woodbine. And there, the traffic has to merge to the right. Okay? It merges to the right. And what happens on that sidewalk, you have a buffer, a 3-foot buffer of brick pavement. Before on the expressway, it might be 6 foot. But when you get closer to Woodbine, it's only 3 feet. There's no trees, there are a few light poles, there's nothing to protect pedestrians on that sidewalk. If you're doing snow blowing, snow blowing this year, you're out there almost every other day. And cars are passing you. They say that if the speed limit is 25, according to the traffic study, they're going 35 or 37. So cars are passing you at a truck passing you at 37 miles an hour. You could have children and families walk. My family walked along it, my kids never kept close to me. They could be right along that curb with a truck going 40 miles an hour. I think that's ludicrous to expect that we should be able to increase that speed with no protection. There's no guardrail. And then you have other conditions that were expressed at at the Public Works Committee. You have people there, they have mailboxes right on the highway. There is no distance from that mailbox. You're standing in the highway to clear snow away from those mailboxes with cars passing you at 35, 45 miles an hour. That's crazy. Now, the thing is, it's kind of interesting at this meeting, people were saying, well, these are perceived hazards. There's other perceived hazards in this community. This is not a perceived hazard. If you're standing out there snow blowing with cars going past you, maybe 3 inches to a foot or 3 yards or a yard from your elbow snow blowing, it is not a perceived hazard, it is a hazard. If you're standing in the highway, clearing that snow away from those mailboxes, it is not a perceived hazard. It is a hazard. And I think that the Common Council was responsible to reduce it. And then they reduced it in 2009, and nothing has happened. Not a single thing has happened. And if that was that big a concern, why didn't the city do something about it? And then at this meeting, there was people that say, oh, we could do this, we could do this, we could do that. And nothing has happened. So now we're expected to increase it to 35. And that's crazy. And I'm not going to be voting for it, be responsible for someone to get killed or lamed or other accidents. Then they say, there hasn't been any accidents. Well, there hasn't been too many accidents because it's at 25. That's why there hasn't been too many accidents. And some people said there has been in the past some accidents where 3 cars, for example, Dan, I'm going to take the testimony. These people are trustworthy people to comment. He said there's 3 incidences where cars did jump that curb. Fortunately, no one was on the sidewalk to get hurt. Another in the city, we stated that there was someone passing, coming out of their driveway and was sideswiped. That was an accident. At this committee meeting, one resident stated that there was a motorcycle accident. So don't tell me there hasn't been accidents, and now we're gonna go back to 35? That's ludicrous. And I don't see how we can vote and be responsible to go back to 35 without doing anything in that area to make any conditional change to reduce those actual hazards. Now, if we're gonna go back to 35, if we're gonna keep it at 25, I think it's only right for the Common Council to look at that area, have a hearing. Now, David's going to be meeting with the DOT and on the 22nd, and we'll find out more about the deadline and what's going to be happening. And I've heard at this Common Council meeting, the mayor has talked about it, David has talked about it. I went over to the DOT and talked to a supervisor right after the Public Works Committee meeting. And they're telling me, we don't know when this reconstruction of this area will take place. It could take a year, it could be taking 2 years. From what I'm sensing, it'll be taking 3 to 5 years. So are we gonna increase that speed limit to 35 for another 3 to 5 years with a potential accident? I say no. And I don't see how we can increase it. And if we keep it at 25, we keep it at 35, we should do something in that area to protect the residents. That safety trumps the cost. And if we come back, I think after David's meeting on the 22nd, I think there should be a public hearing with the residents in that area. I think those suggestions that came up at a Public Works Committee should be looked at and explored at and maybe even expanded on. I think we should come back to the Common Council, and I think it should be funded. If we want to go up to 35, then let's fund it. And if we don't have the funds, let's find the funds. Instead of buying 2 trucks this year, let's buy 1 truck. Instead of doing something else, let's do a little bit less of it and put in the safety features of this area. I think it's totally wrong. And I hope that later, after other comments, people in this area could stand up and give testimonial. I tried to capsulize it in my brief minute right here of sharing what I heard at that meeting. And I think it's ludicrous to even think of raising it to 35. And after conditions have changed and we put in the restructural things that we could put in a short period of time, possibly June, July, and in July we feel everything is fine, maybe we have to come back to the Common Council to raise it to 35. But I don't think it's on the responsibility of the city. If someone gets in an accident, speeding up to 35, passing someone going 30, rather than extending the speed limit to 35 and someone passing 40, it's the responsibility of the driver in driving in the condition. And then I get, in the memo we got from the city attorney, said people are going to be confused. I don't see how they're going to be confused. If I'm driving along that area and I see a speed limit of 25 miles an hour, I'm not confused. I go 25 miles an hour and sometimes I go 30. Maybe I'll go 37. But I'm not going to be confused. I'm going to say, well, now I'm going to go 45. So I don't think I don't see where the confusion is. The only confusion is if we put this in the paper saying it's not enforceable, that's confusion. So I don't get it. And so I just hope that the Common Council looks at the judgment and we looked at in the Public Works to deny it.
Thank you. Alderperson Kirkpatrick?
Thank you. I just wanted to share a little bit of the history of this whole thing as I know it, I recall it, and I understand it. Shane and I, mostly Shane, I'll admit that. I requested that he find where this speed limit was actually reduced at what time. We did finally find it, or Shane finally found the thing. It was reduced by ordinance in 2008 on that stretch of road. The wording is awkward at best, which required me to seek out the city attorney for clarification as to what it actually said, what it actually did. Then we get to, so that, like I say, that took place in, what, April 2008, sorry. Fast forward up to August 11th, 2009, and this is where we have a request from Port Edwards to raise that speed limit back up to 35 miles an hour. So about, a little over a year, almost a year and a half went by, and a year and a half went by in this amount of time where the road was reduced down to 25 miles an hour. And if you'd indulge me here for a moment, a request to increase the speed limit between the roundabout and West Riverview Expressway. Complaints received regarding the speed limit change, major arterial, and not recommended the lower speed limit. And at that time, yes, we had received essentially the same memo from the attorney's office. We also had Mr. Laspa defended the city's position based on warrants and other studies. I don't have those in front of me tonight. I did 5 years ago, but that's neither here nor there. As far as it went, that night, based upon comments from Joe Eichstead, Dave Laspa, taking into consideration the attorney's memo, and also Joe Terry from Port Edwards and residents, I made a motion to inquire about purchasing land on Second Avenue and moving Second Avenue closer to the river. It was moved by myself, seconded to explore the possibility of moving traffic to the center lane of Second Avenue, lane shifting, removing the left turn lane to the state office building, moving sidewalks, and removing driveways off of Second Avenue. I understand that some of those measures are being considered and will be implemented as they are able to be. So some of the, driveways, as I understand it, are gonna be moved off of the expressway. Some simply cannot be because there's no rear access. The ones that must remain on, I keep saying the expressway, I'm sorry, Second Avenue. The ones that must remain on there, I understand, are also gonna be done in such a way that will allow for the car to pull out, face forward rather than backing out. So make that aspect of entrance onto the roadway safer. It's not listed in here, but one of the things that I had also said that night was that the city could install a barricade, which would be essentially some of the steel fencing with the, the wooden posts that you see on so many bridges, ramps, things of that nature. And by the residents there that evening, that idea was flat out rejected. So there have been alternatives, options that have been put out there. Some are being explored, some are not feasible, some have been done, others have been rejected. So to say that nothing's being, things have been done, things have been looked at. And it's just, I voted that we maintain the current speed limit at 25 miles an hour that night in Public Works, that we maintained it while a study was being done by the city's engineering department. I don't personally recall that it came back after that amount of time. I'm not exactly sure what studies were done, but essentially what I had learned that night was that there is a perception among drivers, and I don't think any single individual in the world is excluded from this, myself included, that an individual will drive as they feel is reasonable and prudent for the conditions. So some people will drive 25 miles an hour. Other people will look at it and say, the roadway is quite wide. I can safely drive 30, 35, 40 miles an hour. And no amount of putting up a sign is going to change that for anyone. So that's just one thing to consider. I believe, Dave, that you had brought that up at one point in time, and correct me, shake your head no if I'm wrong, but yeah, okay. So there's other considerations here as to what's going on, the 85%, the reasonable and prudent speed as what a driver perceives it, not necessarily a pedestrian or somebody standing there watching it, but as a driver in a car. And I might also, the last thing I'd like to point out is that there are other areas in the city where we do have sidewalks directly on roadways. 6th Street South by East Junior High, Lincoln Street by East Junior High, Peach Street by East Junior High, Peach Street as you go down past the library, Grand Avenue essentially from 8th Street all the way across to, I don't know, over here. So the entire stretch of Grand Avenue. Your bridges, with the exception of the expressway has got concrete barricades, although I can't imagine a semi doing 40-45 being stopped by a Peasley little barricade. So this instance of a sidewalk in that type of a location is not isolated in this community. And it's fine to draw attention to it, but I think if we're going to draw that this type of attention to this sort of thing, we need to examine all those areas, not just single one area out. Because a child was killed on 6th Street when he was pushed in front of a bus. People do step out without thinking about it off the sidewalk for no apparent reason whatsoever in any number of places without looking, crossing the street or just, a nickel, or, a bicycle coming by, they'll step off the road. So there's a lot more things to consider here than what's really presented. That's all I'm going to have to say about that.
Alderperson Young.
So I have a couple questions. So in our attorney's memo, and as she has advised us in the past, it's questionable whether or not somebody doing 27 or 30 is even enforceable. So I'm wondering, Chief, are you running radar there at all then? I mean, how dangerous is that if, we can't enforce it, so why run it at all?
Well, Gene, we're really in a position of having to enforce through discretion because in the engineering study and in the opinion of our attorney, which we follow, we're operating in an area where a speed limit has been reduced going against a study. So by that, I would share there is traffic enforcement done, but it's more of an unreasonable, imprudent, in excess of a 35 or 40 if that were to occur. Those are the types of things where officers are still enforcing, but the 25 to 35, based on our attorney's opinion, based on our study, is in our position not enforceable.
And there lies my concern. So if an officer stopped somebody for doing 30 and found, I don't know, let's say a little heroin in the back, fruit of the poison tree, that heroin's gone. So again, shouldn't we post the speed limit appropriately so we can have appropriate enforcement? And I appreciate, Kurt, thank you for answering the way you did, because I was assuming that answer. Usually I don't ask without knowing before I do that. But I don't think it's reasonable to do anything but make sure we're clear. We can't enforce it. I don't know what is confusing about can't enforce it. We can't. So we're not writing tickets at 25. We're not writing tickets at 26, 27, 28, 30, 31. I'm on a pattern here. So I just don't know why, you heard from the police chief, they're not enforcing it. Our attorney's telling us we can enforce it. I'm just scratching my head.
Alderperson Nash.
Thank you. We've listened to some history here, and I guess I'll explain the way I remember the discussion and the original discussion and how this, the meeting and how this all came about. And obviously, some people aren't here to defend themselves, but a citizen down on 2nd Avenue wanted the speed limit reduced and approached, at that time, Mayor, what was her name? Carson. And, no, and the discussion was, and they studied it, and there was an engineering study, and come out of Public Works, and it come to the council, and the engineering study said, no, you shouldn't lower it, and the police department said, no, you shouldn't lower it. But the council went ahead and voted 6-2, I believe, to lower it. Shortly after that, the city attorney contacted the alderperson and said, well, maybe we can't do that, okay? And then nothing happened for quite some time. But during that discussion, the original night, you know, and I always look at this, things like this, as whether it be a public hearing on road improvements or curb and gutter, stuff like that. The people that live there, you know, are the ones that bring the issue for us. You know, whether they don't own the road though. You know, the citizens own the road. The people who drive the roads are there for people to move from one spot to another. Now, if you live there and you don't like people going by at 35 miles an hour after it's been 35 miles an hour since 1968 or whatever it's been, whatever, you know, and I don't understand. I've stayed out of this. I went to the last meeting and spoke a little bit about it, and I'm not going to sit and argue with people. I just think it should be back at 35. It was 35. I'm not. All right. So I grew up on that road, and there used to be railroad tracks there, and there was a hill there, and we used to sled there, and we had a run that went right down, and we went over the snowbank into the road, you know, but we looked for cars coming down the road, you know, and that was part of growing up, you know, and I played in that park, and that was some of the argument that night was the kids crossing the road to the park, and it bothers me, you know, that you have to be responsible for your kids, you know, and to cross that road, it's no harder to cross that road than it is Oak Street. Okay, if you look both ways, if there's a car coming, you don't cross. But we can vote however we want tonight. I'm gonna walk out of here and, you know, I really don't care. But I think it was wrong to lower it to begin with. I think it's wrong that it's been that low for this long. And everything that I hear is it should be raised back up. So that's why I seconded the motion, and I'm done, I guess.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Alderperson Kirkpatrick?
I'm sorry, I just had one question as far as it goes. I don't see anywhere in here or in the minutes or recall in previous discussions, has it been considered to simply remove that stretch of sidewalk entirely, since we have the city trail that goes right through the park adjacent to it, which is marked far off of the road? I mean, does this serve an extraordinary purpose with that there?
Defer to Mr. Laspa.
No, I don't believe we've looked at taking it out. In fact, if we do get a state project on it with the new laws, we have to maintain the sidewalk, and some places they make you put in more sidewalks. So it's a possibility, but it's never been done that I've heard of.
That's for the, okay. Any further discussion? Alderperson Hokamp, do you have something?
Talking about removing that sidewalk, where will those children that come from the school walk? They sure aren't going to walk in the park there to get home. They come from West Junior High. They come from the Mead going home. There's a lot of children that live on 2nd Avenue South. Where in the world would they walk if they didn't have the sidewalk there? I know it's dangerous, but at least they got a sidewalk.
Aren't most of the roads, or I'm sorry, aren't most of those serviced from the rear? so they could take roads off of, 3rd Avenue or whatever be back there, the cul-de-sacs to the rear, rather than walking down 2nd Avenue.
Alderperson Rayon, you're next on the list.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll make it short, I guess, because Alderperson Kellogg, I think, did a very good job, and I think shared from his heart a lot of the concerns that the neighbors have, but I think did an excellent job on, that I agree with anyway, of what that statute says and what we can do. You know, actually, to me, it's foolish that we're even talking about it, but what's always been in my mind is, and somebody threw the figure out the other day, and I'm not sure what it was, how much time is saved traveling that stretch of road if it's 35 versus 25. If that is going to save the village of Port Edwards, man, I got you something else to sell. That is the total reason that this is being even discussed, to raise it. Let's be honest. There's a report, or the DOT is getting back, I think on the 22nd, to us. But in this thing of August 11th, 2009, Public Works took up the request from Port Edwards to increase it to 35. Public Works Committee directed that the speed limit remain at 25 until the following items are studied by the engineering department in moving the traffic to the center lane on 2nd Avenue South. B is lane shifting. C is removing the left turn lane into the state office building. D, moving sidewalks. E, removing driveways on the 2nd Avenue South. Now, some or all of them, to me, should be done. From 2009, we're approaching August in a few months of 2014, close to 5 years. We haven't come up with, if it has to be us, with the money to do it. I don't think we've requested from the state, my memory could be wrong on that, for assistance in that. And if I'm wrong, I apologize on that. But until these things, the suggestions were made of what the committee thought were ways to improve the safety. And I think to the committee, that is the main and overriding issue, safety. It's not what 85% of the traffic wants to travel, other than the safety part, is that could make it more likely of an accident happening, somebody jumping the curb. I drive that most days going to work every day. I will have to say, at 25, I think more of the traffic, and haven't sat there with anybody that's checking the speed. To me, it looks like people are going slower. Not all. You still see the racetrack. But I think it has toned it down. But then you get the ones that want to gun it. I mean, somebody that first in line and they take the middle lane, they know where they're going. They don't get in the right lane. They just want to have a game. But to get back to Alderperson Kellogg again, and what I said previously, Scott did a great job, I think, with his presentation. But the safety part and how much time is really saved in number of seconds to go that stretch of road. I don't see it. and probably a lot of people in the community don't see it, but I actually like it at 25. And like I said, I drive it every day. It doesn't bother me that my speedometer, that it says what I'm going, the 25 and that. If I'm going to be 30 seconds later getting to work, I'm 30 seconds later getting to work. So it's, and I think to compare, I think where the sidewalks are mentioned by, in the community, by the roadways, I didn't write them all down, but I would venture to guess most, if not all, the speed limit's 25. Take other communities. Go into Plover. Look, when you say the highway's wide down here that we're talking about, go look at what that is. And I'm sure every one of us has. How wide? 2 lanes each way with this wide median in between, but yet then on each side is a nice wide boulevard before you get to their sidewalk and walking trails. And see what their speed limit is there as you come off the racetrack from 65 to 50 to 40, and you're still in that stretch of road with that beautiful roadway that they cut you down to 35. Now, that's what we're talking about on this part, is 35. What I want is the comparison, though, of what the road is here versus a road like going into Plover. And how far the sidewalks are back off the road. Like I said, there's got to be a 10-foot boulevard before you get to the sidewalk. People walk that. I see them a lot when I go that way, and I do travel up that way a lot, too. So that, I just don't see raising it to 35, safety's sake and number of seconds that are saved by that. So, Your Honor, that's it.
Alderperson Kellogg, your second time speaking.
I did a little bit of a study of my own. I went 25 miles an hour, and then I went 35 miles an hour, and a difference of 15 seconds. Now, I don't see too many people traveling at 15 miles an hour there. They seem to be going 30. So my guess is between the 30 and the 35 would be 10 seconds. So you shave 10 seconds off of someone's traveling that distance versus the safety of the students and pedestrians and people living on that area. I think it's just reasonable to think about, I'd rather have the speed limit at 25. Also, when we talk about other parts of the city, and this is what I referred to before, where people are saying there's perceived hazards, yeah, we could cherry pick throughout the whole city. I could give you a list of spots, and I bet we could put it in a newspaper, they could give a list of spots where it's perceived. And we can come up with a whole list. I'm talking about this area. I'm talking about this area where it's required that you have to pinch over to the right. You have to merge to the right where there's this 3 foot buffer of nothing, of brick. Nothing to stop a car from jumping that in the winter and someone's out there working on the sidewalks. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So yeah, we could go around the whole city and find other spots. I'm talking about this spot. I'm talking about these residents. And then you talk about the study. I keep hearing the study. I heard about the study. As I said, I went to the DOT and I talked about the study. I understand the study. It makes sense. But I'm not talking about the study. I'm talking about the investigation of the conditions of that area. And if the speed limit is 25, some cars will go 30, some will go 35. You might have some crazy going 45. But the idea is that if cars are going 25, 30, they would stop a car from going 45. But if you put it up to 35, you're going to have cars going 30, 35, 45, and even more. And that doesn't make sense. So the idea of an enforcement, I think just the speed of having 25, 30, then the idea of these mailboxes really, I think, is so crazy, where you have to stand in the street, in the highway, not street, highway, and clear that away. Where out in a rural area, you have a big area that you could clear from. I mean, why don't we have the post office, if they have to go along the highway and put the mail in the mailboxes or what have you, that's even a hazard. They stop, put the stuff in the mailbox, cars have to go around them. Then they have to come back in, then they have to go around them. I mean, it's ludicrous. Why don't we talk to the post office and see if we can get the mailboxes off the highway? And where the postman can go to the house, or if it's a time issue, put the mailboxes on the sidewalks. So they just walk along the sidewalks and put the mail in. I mean, there's so many possibilities of making this safe rather than, let's just put it up to 35. So I just don't see it. And I know there's people in the audience that live it and give testimony to the things that they see in day out. And after they speak, I'd like to make my last comment.
Alderperson Nash.
Thank you. I after listening to Alderperson Rayom, you're right, Tom. What should have happened here was, rather than lower the speed limit and going to Public Works, citizen going to Public Works and lowering the speed limit, what the council should have done was said, well, we're gonna keep it at 35, but we're gonna make it safer. We're gonna come up with the money. We're gonna make it safer. We're gonna put in for a grant. We're gonna do whatever needs to be done. It's gonna stay at 35, but we're gonna try to make it safer for you people. That isn't what happened, okay? And the expressway bridge was put in 1978. This is an example, okay? When that was put in, that sidewalk, there was no barrier there, all right? In 2000, it had to be after 2000, in 2000 something, Larry Jorgensen and one of his constituents wanted to make it safer. So that, I think we got a grant from the state, whatever, and we put up $100 and some thousand, and they cantilevered that sidewalk out and they put that barrier there. But for 20-some years, people walked across that bridge at 45 miles an hour with cars right there, and everything was fine. So you're right. It can stay at 25, but then the city should do so, or if you're gonna raise it, then fix it. Fix the problem. But the problem should have been fixed before we lowered it, in my opinion. Okay?
We have a motion to call for the question in a second. All in favor? Do we have to have a voice vote, or do we have to, are there any nays? Call the question is cease debates. Most cease debate, so we'll revote. All in favor? Opposed? That's an aye or a nay? Okay, got a nay to, so that passes. So at this point, the debate has been ceased, and we'll move into a vote. All those in favor of the motion, which is to raise the speed limit up to 35 miles per hour on that stretch, please cast your ballot in the aye, in the affirmative.
I misunderstand. We invited, at a Public Works, a letter went out to have people in that area to speak. Why? Maybe, I'm sorry, I apologize for not knowing the rules of order, okay? But if we invite them to come, and I mentioned it earlier in my statement, there are people here to speak, why aren't they speaking before we take a vote on passing them?
You'd have to recognize a member of the audience to speak. There was a motion to cease debate that seconded and passed.
Well,
So therefore, the council decided, not unanimously, but decided in the affirmative to cease debate.
But if I stated at the beginning of my comments, there were people here, I mean, that would like to speak, and a letter went out by David Laspa, and we said at the Public Works that they could come and speak. And I apologize for not knowing the rules or whatever about asking questions, because we haven't really had a big discussion while I was on the board like this. But it seems to me I would like to have the common council waive that and let the people speak about the area that they live in.
Oh,
Do you mind?
well, yeah, I do. You should have voted no.
Well,
And
okay.
but debate was ceased, and so we're in the middle of a vote, and so,
And I'm 99.9% sure that it's gonna go the way the people want anyway, so.
Well, I can't count
please,
it, but
we're
I
gonna.
just would hope, and
The
I,
motion for the rules of the order, we're gonna move forward with the vote.
well, I apologize to the people that showed up.
So we have a motion to, the affirmative, an affirmative vote, an aye vote, a yes vote is to raise the speed limit to 35 miles per hour. A nay or a no vote would be to keep the speed limit at the 25 miles per hour that is posted. Okay. Really in a difficult position. I recognize that this issue is many members of the public are very passionate about this issue. Obviously, a tie is required, and that's why I'm speaking, if you can't quite see the screen. I will break the tie tonight for a couple of reasons. First, we have drivers driving at it is a tie. First, because we have drivers driving at a reason that is comfortable to them. Second reason is because some drivers are driving at what's posted, so that in and of itself is a hazard. People are driving what's comfortable, and those that are driving at what's posted. Second, there are improvements. My staff in the Streets Department, Engineering Department assure me that this spring that stretch will be chip sealed, in which process 3 feet, potentially up to 3 feet of roadway will be, of a buffer will be generated to slide the lanes over towards the river. So that in and of itself is a safety improvement that should have been done and now will be done this year. The third reason that I will break the tie is because now we can enforce this stretch of road. And the fourth and final reason is we will address the issue with the post office to see what we can do to get that to be a non-motor carrier route, to have it a walkable route so the post boxes are not in the roadway. So I will cast the vote in the affirmative to break the tie and to raise the speed limit up to 35 miles per hour. Okay.
Could we,
Yes, sir.
just a question.
Sure.
I'm not disagreeing with
Mm-hmm.
what you did, but there it is. Okay. I was wondering how.
What the
people-
vote,
I was wondering
final vote was,
how the-
Shane said he
what the
couldn't
vote was.
relieve, or
Yeah.
he couldn't release it until the tie was cast, so.
Can I?
Alderperson Kellogg, did you?
You
have a-
stated that these things will be taking place, and we'll have the meeting with the post office, Philly and others.
Yep.
I would like to have these things be taking place, going back to what Bob mentioned, before the speed limit is raised. I mean, I don't know how long it takes. Do we have to go to the,
That wasn't the motion, so, and because you can make that referral to go back to the Public Works Committee.
I'll
in the
make that
same way.
referral then.
Okay, so we'll have that at the end of the meeting where you can refer to that to committees. Okay, item C is the Human Resources Committee meeting held March 20th and April 8th.
I never saw that coming.
It's our last meeting, Bob, that's why.
Yeah. Human Resources Committee met at 4 PM on Thursday, March 20th. Item number 1, the meeting was called to order at 4 PM. Item 2, approve a request to fill an electronics technician position at the airport due to a vacancy. A motion was made and seconded to approve the request. Motion carried. Item 3, request by Alderperson Nash to consider a 2015 HSA contribution amount for plan participants. A motion was made and seconded, or no, a motion was made by Alderperson Nash to fund the HSA plan deductibles at the same level as the 2014 funding. The motion died for lack of a second. Motion was made by Alderperson Nash, seconded by Alderperson Stack to refer the item without a recommendation to the full council, and that motion carried. Item 4, a motion was made and seconded to adjourn. The meeting adjourned at 4:20. I need to hold out that whole report, both those items. The Human Resource Committee also met at 4 PM on Tuesday, April 8th, 2014. Item 1, the meeting was called to order at 4 PM. Item 2, the committee conducted a lottery drawing for seasonal labor interviews. The committee conducted a lottery drawing for seasonal labor interviews. Item 3, a motion was made and seconded to adjourn. The meeting adjourned at 4:07, and I'll move for approval of both reports with holding out report number 1.
We have a motion to approve the,
Yeah.
essentially
I
the
guess
second report.
report, yeah.
All right, and we have a motion and a second. Tom, would you mind hitting for Shane's purposes here? Thank you. Maybe confirm, Tom, if you could.
Huh?
On the second. You said you seconded it. Can you indicate for Shane's computer here? Or somebody else? All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the report on April 8th. Seeing none, move into a vote. Please cast your votes.
Motion carried. 8 ayes and 0 nays.
And the balance of the report concerning March 20th.
Yeah, item number
Nash.
2, as far as I know, we need to make a motion, I think, just to deny that, because after our meeting, I believe the
changed.
Airport Commission had another meeting, and that position will fall under the Airport
FBO.
Commission, I believe, or
The
something.
FBO operator, right.
Right, so I would make a motion to deny item number 2, which is to approve a request to fill an electronics technician position at the airport due to a vacancy.
We have a motion to deny number 2. And a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballot. Oh, I'm sorry, Alderperson Stack, yes? I'm sorry, yeah, we did get our second. Alderperson Kirkpatrick ended up catching it before I looked up. Can we make sure your mic is on? I'm not sure if I can hear you. It's hard to tell if some of them, the volume's pretty low tonight. Thank you.
Just a question about this position. Is this full-time, part-time? What type of position? Because when I left the meeting that night, I was under the impression this was not really a full-time position, but as a on-call as needed.
Right.
Is that what this is?
The city had previously had an arrangement with the Airport Commission to house the previous individual under the city's, as an employer of record. That person now has retired and no longer is performing it. This new individual, the original request was by the Airport Commission to honor that same agreement with the city holding the record, but no, it's just an as-needed position to do maintenance on one of the runway approach systems. But that the Airport Commission now has decided to, or the FBO has agreed to host this person underneath their own payroll. So the city will no longer have to deal with that particular position. But it wasn't as needed. It was, it was short term.
All right, so no commitment from the city for
Correct.
salary, benefits, anything
Exactly.
like that?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Please cast your vote since we're in the middle of that. I'm sorry.
Motion carried. 8 ayes and 0 nays.
Clear that. Okay, we've got the balance of the report on March 20th. Item 3, it's just essentially on March 20th, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Can I speak?
Yes, please, Alderperson Nash. I didn't see you on the list. I wasn't sure if you were ready to.
Oh,
Go ahead,
um,
please.
Okay, well, this was a referral from me. I guess looking back at the June 13th, 2013 meeting, we had a Human Resources Committee meeting, and we met with the Finance Committee. Item number 5 was discuss health insurance plan design options, including an HSA option and premium contribution levels for July 1st, 2013 renewal, and consider a staff recommendation. So an motion was made by Young, seconded by Nash, to approve the staff recommendation regarding plan design and options, premiums, the city premium, and the HSA contributions as attached herein, effective January 1st, 2014, to renew with ING for the city's stop-loss insurance with a $75,000 stop-loss limit with lasers of 2 employees for the plan year July 1st, 2013, June 30th, 2014, as attached here to, and to renew with Security Administrative Services for claims administration for the plan year July 1st, 2013, June 30th, 2014, as attached here, and motion carried. Anybody understand that? Probably not. But anyway, that's what was the motion, and that's what came out of that. There's also, I don't know if oh yeah, it says attached. So there was an attachment, the health insurance plan design changes effective January 1st, 2012. 1, remain self-insured for 2014. 2, eliminate Plan A. 3, increase Plan B deductibles from 250 single, 500, 625, 750, 100, you know. And 4, offer a health savings account, HSA, with deductibles at the legally required minimum of 120 or 1,250 single, 250 two-person, or 2,500 two-person, and 2,500 family. Prescription drugs will be paid at 90% after deductible. The city will contribute toward the high deductible at $500 single, $1,000 two-person and family in both the first and second years, 2014, 2015. 5, the city will provide a one-time HSA payment which will fully fund the high deductible, the difference between the city contribution in 4 above and the amount of the deductible in the first year, with a 2-year participant commitment from the employee. If there is only a 1-year participant commitment, this one-time payment will be halved. Employee premiums, contributions toward Plan B would be increased 20%, 15 if the participant is in the health risk appraisal. Employee premium contributions toward the HSA would be 10%, 5% if the employee participated in the health risk appraisal. All new hires will be offered the HSA only. Retirees would receive the same plan options as active employees. Any city contribution will be determined at a later date, which we did at a later meeting. Premium amounts effective January 1st, 2014 will be as followed. So I don't really need to read those, but I want to go back to why I brought this forward, and it's because of the premium levels for July 1st, 2013, and consider a staff recommendation, and maybe I just became a little complacent or whatever, you know, over the years with staff recommendations, and I don't believe a lot of questions were asked at that meeting. I may have asked one as far as, are we communicating to the city employees this change, and I'm sure Gene Young asked a question or two. And we had a group of employees, what was it called, the health trustees at one time, and it was a group of city employees and Dave Batten and I believe maybe Tim and whoever, and we dissolved that because it was illegal. But we dissolved that group, but we as a council, as a HR committee and as a council, said no, you will have a say in any changes in your insurance, or you know, we will listen to you. Nobody from the city employees, and this is not a union thing. This is all city employees. This includes everybody that's on our insurance. But I didn't really think much of it. But then I talked to some people at Water and Light. Water and Light was bringing up the issue because obviously the commission deals with do their own contracts and so forth. Well, I went to that meeting, and questions were asked, unlike at our meeting, and this was after the council. It was after this was already passed, and questions were asked, and they made sense, and I'm like, well, you know, why can't the city do this too? And what Water and Light is doing is they are funding the 2015 at the same cost as 2014. The commission voted to do that. There were some people that were awful upset about it. I walked out with one of the person, and she was just spewing. And there was some conversations between City Hall and Water and Light. And Water and Light voted again, the commission voted again, and they voted again to do it, to fund it the second year. And I always hear over the years, that they're all city employees, they should all be treated the same, but it always went the other way. It always went like, we did something over here, then Water and Light conformed to us. And I'm like, well, why can't we conform to Water and Light? So is it a money issue for the city? No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. And I'm gonna try to be short, and try to make my point quick, because I know a few of you already have your minds made up. But the reason that the city approached or needed to do something about it is because of the insurance increase that we were gonna have in premiums. And if we didn't do anything, and Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong anywhere along the line here, but it would have been $3.5 million for Plan B only. And so to offer the HSA, basically, and we had to have at least a 50% employee buy-in in this, and I believe we ended up with 90% or close to 95% of the employees. So the employees stepped up to the plate here. They said, hey, there must be an issue here. I mean, we're not handing out carrots here. There's an issue. So just to do that, to switch the HSA off and get the people off Plan B and eliminate Plan A, saved $550,000 based in our insurance costs. So, but the employer, the city, their contribution for that deductible is $375,000 for that deductible for that first year, to make that, pay for that whole deductible. But that still saved $177,000. So where'd that money go? Where's that $177,000? Well, it doesn't really matter, because basically the cities, we're going to talk Act 10 now. All right, now, Act 10, love it or like it, there's good things that came out of Act 10, there's bad things that I think came out of Act 10. But it made people pay into their retirement, which the portion that the city doesn't have to pay anymore. And some people had to start paying in 2011. 2012, more people had to pay. 2013, everybody had to pay. Every negotiating and management. Management had to pay a year and a half earlier. But the police and fire originally didn't have to pay. And because they were exempt, or supposedly exempt, or they thought they were exempt, or whatever they were. But we still have the option to change their plan design. And so we went to the police and fire, and we said, well, either you pay into the retirement, or we're going to jack up your deductible. I don't remember what, $10,000, $15,000, some outrageous amount. They spit and sputtered for, thought, how can you do this, whatever. But the motion was made, and they came back, and they paid. They stepped up, and they paid. They don't have to. I don't know if they have to now, or if they would have to now. I think there's an arbitration in different cities and whatever. But anyway, so everybody's paying. So in 2013, the savings to the city alone, just in that WRS contribution, is $668,000. The total from 2011 to 2013 is $820,000. Now, where'd that money go? Did it go into the general fund? The budget is done different now than it used to be done, but where is that money? Where's that money sitting? Well, most of it went to pay for wage increases, which I kind of found ironic, because maybe that discussion we had on the phone about no wage increases in that year was true, because basically, we didn't give them anything. We took their own money and paid them back. In my opinion. But anyway, so it's just, this is my 15th year here, and I've negotiated, all but 2 of those years I've been on the Human Resources Committee. And I've negotiated 6 or 7 contracts with all the groups, and always try to be fair, always try to be fair. Always try to do what's best for the organization, too, you know, and I never one way or the other. We had the greatest negotiating session when we had the consensus bargaining, but then Act 10 come along and put the kibosh on that. But anyway, that savings of $820,000, in 2014, we're going to have at least another $600,000, I'm thinking. I could be wrong, but even with those wage increases and whatever, there's still 400,000 or over 400,000 in contingency, correct, or no?
Tim, did you want to respond to that?
Oh, just to kind of go back to when you reference the Act 10 savings as far as the WRS contributions, you also have to remember in 2011, when Act 10 was put in place and the city was to realize these savings in the WRS, the state also reduced our shared revenues by $200,000.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, yeah.
So then over the 6-year or 3-year period, that's $600,000 that we have less in revenue to offset the 800 some odd thousand in WRS savings.
Right, but
As
am
far
I
as
correct? As I'm correct, though, that there's still like $400,000 in contingency.
Correct.
Okay. So I guess, you know, where does that $400,000 need to go? Does it need to go to economic development? Does it need to go to Second Avenue? Does it need to go wherever? Well, I think it needs to go, it's half. You know, the increase to do the 2015 would be an additional $225,000. I think it should go back to the employees. I think to be fair to the employees, they stepped up. They do this Six Sigma thing, you know, which saves the city money evidently, and whatever. And the comment was made at the meeting, and I have not been involved in any of those, but the comment was made that, you know, that's part of that is the employee gets involved in it and finds some savings, and that savings will come back to the employee. You know, well, here's an opportunity to go back and help out the employee. Like I said in the beginning, you know, that I just, boom, let's go, you know, let's do this, and then the employees hopped on board and everything, and just after I went to that Water and Light meeting, and then I talked to their finance guy, nothing against you, Tim, but, you know, I had a discussion with him, and I still didn't bring it up until a month ago, you know, but I mean, I just think, over the years, I've always tried to be fair, the city council's always tried to be fair, and I think this is being fair, and so we can have discussion, I guess, but I'm going to, make my original motion that we fund 2015 at the same rate as 2014 on the deductible for employees. That's a motion.
We had a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Open up for discussion. Alderperson Kirkpatrick, you're first.
Thank you. I guess this is just kind of a open-ended question, and whoever has the info to respond, by all means, please do. I guess my first question was, Tim, is this funded? But I guess it's kind of not, in a way, in a sense. It wasn't really included in the budget. But I guess the bigger question that I'm looking at here is, if we go back and if we do this, if we fund this as the motion states, what precedent do we set? And will we be back in this same position again next year?
Oh, We have to redo every 2 years anyway, right, or every year or whatever.
Right. I mean, as far as like the motion which would fund the 2015 deductible, that would be part of the 2015 budget. So the 2014 budget wouldn't have to be amended for this motion, but we would have to include that amount in the 2015 budget.
Okay, so essentially it wouldn't really, it would change one budget upcoming that's yet to be done, and then after that, we would be essentially negotiating a new, is that correct?
Well, every year at renewal time, we set the premiums for the upcoming budget year with the health plan renewal.
Okay, so this,
So, and I guess was it probably anticipated that at renewal time was when, now that the HSA contribution is part of our health plan design, that those contribution amounts would be, discussed and settled on at that time.
would you say that this would be kind of a one-time venture then? If it were approved, I mean, well, you can never say that.
No, I mean, I think
We
it was
did
the
it
intent that the employer HSA contribution was gonna be discussed at every renewal. It wasn't just, I mean, the employer contribution wasn't just a 2-year. We just guaranteed the amounts for a 2-year because it was new to people. And we
Right.
wanted to give them some type of assurance that there was gonna be some money in their HSA accounts to fund those higher deductibles. But I think the intent is that the employer contribution will be looked at each and every year at insurance renewal time.
Okay, thank you.
And Tim, for clarification, renewal time is coming this summer, June.
July
Good.
1st is our
July
new health
1st.
plan year.
Alderperson Stack, you're next.
Thank you, Your Honor. I see this as somewhat putting the cart before the horse. I think we should not commit funds unnecessarily until we know what next year will be. We'll have the discussions that take place for insurance. We'll know what our costs will be, and at that time, then we can agree or disagree to funding the 2015 level at the same as the 2014. The insurance is changing, if you read the news, some of the business pages, and people are not sure what will be occurring next year and future years. And I don't want to commit to something at this time that we're not as reasonably aware of as we could be. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderperson Kirkpatrick?
Thanks. Just one other question. I guess, in the opinion of the man who holds the purse string, what is the city in a position, poised, capable of following through if the motion as presented were passed? What type of would it pose issues? Would it pose insurmountable issues? Would it not be an issue whatsoever, I guess?
If the council decided to make funding the HSA deductible at the full amounts for 2015 a priority, I believe that we could fund that, yes.
And Tim, what was the total cost to following through on the motion? As a follow-up for Kirkpatrick, I'm thinking he's probably going to ask.
$225,000.
$225,000 cost to the city. Okay. And I would add that work has not begun on the 2015 budget, so not understanding where shared revenue is going to be at for 2015, all things equal, we have no indication of that. Just want to point that out, since Finance Director touched on it but didn't point that out. Any further discussion? Seeing none, moving to a vote. Please cast your ballots. Shenanigans.
Motion carried, 5 ayes and 3 nays.
Okay, next item on the agenda, item 11, report for the Municipal Board of Canvassers held April 2nd. That's attachment, Shane, does that have an attachment number?
No.
Just attached in the reports, okay. Council members, what are your wishes regarding that report?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? That passes. Sorry, Shane, I just ditched it. Okay, item 12, miscellaneous reports. Item A, the city treasurer's monthly report for February. Item B, the Wisconsin Rapids Housing Authority, held February 26th. Item C, Police and Fire Commission, held March 19th. Item D, Park and Rec Commission, held March 26th. Item E, Redevelopment Authority, held February 4th. Item F, Waterworks and Lighting Commission, number 1, their regular meetings held March 8th and 12th. Item 2, special meetings held March 12th and March 31st. Item G, the Wastewater Treatment Commission meeting held April 2nd. Item H, the March report of the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department. Item I, the Wisconsin Rapids Fire Department monthly organizational summary for March. Item J, the City Treasurer's investment report for March. Item K, the Southwood County Airport Commission meeting held April 3rd. And item L, the River Cities Community Access report for March. Council members, discussion on those reports. We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Alderperson Kirkpatrick.
Just one quick comment on the fire report. Just wanted to welcome Pastor Dan DeRoche to the department in a volunteer capacity. I don't know if he's been through the department and been down there with the crews at all lately in the firehouses, but it's not my thing. But you know, there's been times when, you know, when I was in basic training and I needed somebody to talk to and I couldn't talk to my DIs, and the chaplain was there and was somebody that you could get advice from. So, you know, in one small respect, I can understand how important that is. So greatly welcome the new addition for the support that they offer.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll move into a vote. Please cast your votes. Two-step, Jim.
Motion carried, 8 ayes and 0 nays.
Item number 14 is actually the presentation of plaques, but we're going to move item 15 in front as comments from outgoing alderpersons. We've got a number of council members departing us this evening. Any comments from outgoing alderpersons? Alderperson Hokamp?
Yes, I have a couple comments I'd like to make. I know it might take a couple minutes, but after being here, I have a few things I'd like to say. I've been interested in city government for many years. When our family friend Van Kubichak ran for mayor, at that time it was a part-time job. Alderman Jim Surgeon would come to the drive-in and we would discuss city projects. When I ran for city alderman, I knew the time that it would take time. Just some extra meetings I had gone to. Mayor Greenway appointed me to the Chamber Food Committee. We do projects with the students and the dairy breakfast. We got money from the Milk Marketing Board for these things, but to get the money, you had to go to a yearly meeting at Eau Claire. I'm still on the committee, and I made the trip again this fall to Eau Claire. When the fire chief wanted a ladder truck, he was concerned with the high school and the mall and the mill. Larry Jorgensen and the purchasing agent and I went to Illinois, and we looked at a used ladder truck. Eventually, the council bought it. Tim Anderson came to many times to the Park and Rec Committee about a firefighter's memorial in Wisconsin Rapids. So we went to Madison and testified for the memorial, something we can be proud of now for the city. I enjoyed meeting with Jim Jansky and the unions. That was quite some meetings. City projects. When the mill took over 4th and 5th Avenue, Jorgensen and his committee met many times with the property owners where the new road would go. And just aside, Mrs. Nash stayed in her little house there on 4th Avenue with the mill all around her until she was ready to leave. We met with property owners when West Grand Avenue was made into 4 lanes. Bruce McMiller had a map of the commercial property there. We brought homes, we brought pieces of property, met with residents when they had damage to the driveways and sidewalks. Projects this year, Washington Street. You have to meet with their property owners about the sidewalk that you will put in. You'll finish the roundabout by the courthouse. Future projects, road by the roundabout by the library, and you'll meet with the county for the extension of 54 bypass. And then there's a big one, the swimming pool. When and where? Remember to be there for your residents in your ward when they have questions and concerns. It'll take your time, but be there for them. And I have a special thank you to my family and to the voters for giving me the opportunity to do something that I enjoyed this past 28 years. I thank the residents of the city.
Thank you. Any further comments from outgoing alderpersons? Alderperson Nash?
No, I'm just thirsty.
Okay. I see your water's gone. Alderperson Young?
Well, I guess, I really want to welcome the new faces to council, to these seats, I guess. And I would echo Marion's comments. Very thankful to the residents of this great city and very grateful to my family for all their support, so I could be here, and looking at one of them right there. I'm glad he's here this evening. And then for all of you remaining and for those new alders, I just leave you with something that President Lincoln had said, which was nearly all men can stand adversity. But if you want to test a man's character, give him power. So I would just leave you with those thoughts.
Thank you. Decades of experience, obviously decision-making, all for the benefit of our city, so thank you to those that are departing. Move into the presentation of plaques to departing alderperson. So we've got, Shane, you want to take them out? We'll have you come up to the front, and we'll present you with your plaque. Okay, and item number 16 is the final adjournment of our 2013-2014 council meeting. Stand adjourned. Second, we have motion second, all in favor? Opposed? Stand adjourned.